Well, after about a couple of weeks off due to my wife working second shift, and I don't like to get started at things at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and a brief vacation trip, back at it. After suffering quite a bit of paralysis of analysis about what to take apart next, I decided to just start at the front and work my way back and see how it goes. So the first thing I'm going to take off is this panel that's holding the spoiler on the front end and the spoiler, and it looks like I can take those off as one piece if I take the right bolts out. There's a couple up here that hold the spoiler to the fender and to the bottom valance, I guess I'd call it. And then there's a couple bolts that hold the spoiler up in there to a bracket underneath. And there are several bolts that hold the spoiler to the valance, but I think if I take out the ones that hold the spoiler to anything else but the valance, and then take out the ones that hold the valance, I can drop that off as one piece. Time will tell whether I'm successful at that, but for now, here goes. Trying to find a good position to put this camera. My tripod isn't high enough for just putting it up and setting it, so I guess I'm going to have to periodically remember to adjust it. But what I'm going to do is first is attack the bolts that hold the spoiler on to the rest of the car. And since there are a lot of these, an air tool is going to be helpful. Felt like they had, oh, I may have broken that. It is a self-tapping bolt into the bracket. I hope a lot of them don't break. That one came out. Okay, that bracket goes under, and the valance bolts to it as well. So I come out, my camera set up. I hope those things come out easier than that, because I can get them out by heating them up with torch and then taking them out and putting new bolts in. That's not a problem. But let me try and get some of these outer bolts, and that's one thing on something like this valance that is a big part. What I like to do is take the center bolts out last because that way you can kind of, it's easier to maneuver this thing if you're working at the As you can see from that, some of those bolts are going to break, and I'll have to take them out of the bracket and put new ones in. One thing that I have to do is make sure that those ones that hold the spoiler to the valance are on a separate piece than the bracket that sits behind there that holds that valance up. Because if it's all one piece, I may have to take it off as the spoiler separate and the valance separate. So instead of wasting your time by watching me take off all these bolts, I'm going to pause the video here and come back in a bit. So the good news is that bracket does not go all the way across. This bracket was up in there kind of like this, and the end of the spoiler was bolted to this part of it, and the valance that goes under there was bolted to the rest. As you can see, there are 3 bolts that broke off in it. What I'll do later on, not now, is I'll get out the torch. I'll heat these things. It's an acetylene torch. I'll heat these things red hot, put a pair of vice grips on them, and they'll turn right out. I'll stick that in a vise so that I don't have to touch it while it's hot. So I'm going to work on the other side now, and I'll bring the video back whenever I get to the middle and I'm taking the whole thing down. So you notice I have a couple of quick grip clamps there holding that valance up right now. Reason I did that is that this is old and it's likely brittle, so I don't want to take these out and have it fall, put the weight on the bolts that are holding the spoiler on, nor do I want to take the spoiler off and put the weight on this valance here and cause it to crack. So hopefully what I'll be able able to do is take these last 4 bolts out and then release the clamp slowly and carefully and take it off without doing any damage. Now to go under and get the 2 from the back. These are 3/8 head on these self-tapping screws. And I have felt around in the back of the spoiler. Doesn't feel like it's attached to anything other than the valance with 4 bolts in the front. Actually 3, one's missing. So I have seen people leave all this on and pull the body off, but in my opinion that makes it a really tight fit between the there's an air tank there that is a reservoir for holding air for the headlights, and we'll be able to see it once this is off. I was right, that came off nicely. Let me pause the video for a moment and reposition the camera. So there's the valance and the spoiler. As I said, there should be 4 bolts, but there's only 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1 missing that hold that onto the valance. I could have taken them off in 2 separate pieces, but it's light. It's not a problem to handle it. You know, if it were a heavy piece, I would take it apart in 2 pieces because it makes it easier to handle. But when it's light, I'll leave them together if I can. So now what's under there? Let me lift the camera. This is the air tank, and you can see the control units for the vacuum for the headlights. And this holds enough vacuum to, I guess, close the headlights after you shut the car off. It doesn't hold a lot, but that is actually an air tank. And as I said, some people disconnect this here and take the body off. But since I want to paint this thing anyway, I think it's just as easy to just go ahead and take everything off and then take the body off. It does make a difference in the weight distribution on the body, because I've heard people say you need to put a lot of weight in the back of the body so that when you raise it, it stays level because it's front heavy. But I find that when I did this on my 74, I took this off. I didn't need any weight in the back. It was pretty well balanced without that. So that being said, I am going to now figure out what it is I want to take off next. After a lot of examination, I decided that the next thing I'm going to take off is the front bumper cover. And there's a lot of hidden bolts to that thing. So what I determined, the first thing I need to do is take out the parking light, turn signal light assemblies. And I'm going to try to take the bulbs out, which need to be disconnected because they're attached there. I have to figure out how the heck that should be. Just turn them. There you go. And pull them out. And once I get that out on both sides, I'm going to lower the car, and the grills that these are attached to appear to come out. They've got some Phillips head screws on the front, and I think once I do that, they will just come right out from the front. So I'll take this other one off. Hard to reach with the tripod for the camera in the way, so I can't get it any leverage on it. There you go. So those aren't too hard if you've got a strong grip. Should have done this 5 or 10 years ago. I'd have been stronger. For now, I'm going to go lower the car down some so I can reach those grill screws from the front. That's the parking lamp grill on the passenger side. And there appear to be screws here. Maybe one there. One there. Tough to see here. Looks like there should have been some in the top that they appear to be missing. So I'll go get a Phillips head screwdriver and see if I can get that out of there. I don't have much room to put the camera in here and work at the same time, but just to show you these. Well, the first one came easy. Let's try the one on the other side. Yeah, this camera's just in the way. I can't get any leverage. Well, hopefully that was a good sign. Yep, it broke loose. And by broke loose, I mean it came loose, it didn't break. So, try that with this one over here. I don't even know if the camera's aimed at it. That one right there. And if I can get that one broken loose, the two on the top on this side are just empty holes. I don't know if that's the screwdriver slipping or the screw turning. This whole thing appears to be, the pressure I'm putting in it, on it appears to be moving this bracket back here, or possibly bending it, I can't tell. Anyways, this is not as easy as I had hoped it would be. Let's get the loose screws out and maybe get a shot of PB Blaster on the back of that other screw. And hopefully it'll come loose. So I was able to get all of the screws loose on the driver's side. Only one of them gave me a little bit of a problem down in this corner here. Once you get that out, you can pull it from the inside and it'll come out easily. Okay. Then you can see what you have in there. And as it turns out, if I can turn some light on here. There's my light. Turns out it looks like this whole bracket, and this is the one that is, this screw is giving me trouble on the other side right here. But this whole bracket appears to be held on. A little bit wobbly there because I'm trying to hold something underneath my arm and focus the camera at the same time. There is a bolt right here. Appears to be a 3/8. And if I can get that off on the other side, then all of that will come out at the same time, I think. Might still be a problem because it's still got to clear this tab. So if worst comes to worst and Blaster doesn't loosen that within a day or so, as you can see on this one, I used Blaster over here too. But if Blaster doesn't loosen that to where I can get it out, maybe I'll drill that out and then I'll be able to see it. In the meantime, I've got a license plate on the front. I'm going to take that off because it may be hiding some bolts. And we'll see what's behind it. Okay, so it turns out behind the license plate is a bracket. It's held on with 6 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll get that off and hopefully that'll expose an area that will allow me to get at some of the bolts that hold the actual bumper skin on. So the license plate bracket is off and it didn't help me at all in terms of getting to any of the bolts. It's quite a heavy piece of metal for sole purpose of attaching a license plate. And then I don't know, maybe there was some kind of a Corvette sign or something on the front before. Ohio no longer requires you to run a front license plate, but unless I come up with some kind of a fancy license plate that I want to run there, I guess I'm going to end up running a license plate anyway, because that's kind of unsightly. This is the bracket that was stuck. This screw here was stuck. You can see the Blaster all over it. And it sat up in here like this. And it was held in with a single bolt right here, 3/8 inch head. And I was able to get a 3/8 inch ratchet up in there and remove it. So that's the way that went on. Trying to get him. So there's the bolt that was holding it on. It went through there. I'm going to go take off the other brackets as well, and I'm keeping the left side with the left side, the right side with the right side, and all the bolts together so that I don't get messed up when I'm trying to put it back together. System that I used in the past, when I take something, I have little Ziploc sandwich bags. All the nuts and bolts that hold it on go into it. It's labeled with where they came from. Helps a lot when you're trying to put it back together. Okay, I'm looking in through the place where the turn signal and running parking light grill was. And in the back of these, there are bolts that are, I don't want to say bolts, yeah, I guess they're nuts that are threaded onto studs that go through on this bracket here that holds them on. And they are hard to get to. They tend to be a long stud that goes through, and there's not really much room to get a deep socket on the back end of it. So you have to use a wrench. Now, these brackets here are kind of going to be in the way. So I'm going to try to remove that so that I can get to the bolts and the nuts that are back here, and then they're up under. They're up under from the back. Maybe I can get a shot from underneath the lift. You can't even really see them. I can get a shot of my finger on one of them, kind of show you, but it's very hard to do. Okay, there's one back here, right there. And that's one that's got better access to it than most, but they are hard to get to, and it's going to be time consuming to get to them. So I am going to take off anything that I can possibly get off that's in the way of those things. And this bracket is one of them. And there's one, of course, on the driver's side. This is passenger side. And I'm going to take out these brackets that held on that parking light grill as well on both sides, just to give myself more room to work, because I'm going to want to take the rest off those and paint them anyway. So I don't know how much of that I'm going to video, but there are a ton of these things, and it is time consuming. I can fill one there, one there, one here at the corner. That, if you notice how that bumper cover goes up in the middle there. There's one on the back of the corner of that. And then I can't really feel from here anyways if there's one right behind the middle of it, but you'll have those on the other side. There don't appear to be anything left holding the bottom of the bumper cover. It appears to be loose, so all I've got to do is get those things out. Easier said than done, but get those off. The bumper skin will come off, and then I'll be able to reach the actual bumper, the crash bumper, and the air tank, and a lot of the things that need to come off. It turns out there's a plug that's easily taken off that has a pigtail for the parking light turn signal light. So I am going to actually take those off on both sides. Here's the driver's side still connected. And I'm going to put the bulbs back into the housing so that the bulbs don't get broken during all the work that's going to go on this car. So I got into the first one of those bolts with a 1/2-inch socket with about a 6-inch extension. I couldn't get a wrench on here and get a swing with the other one, but just so you know, you can actually raise the headlight from below. So now, and I'm probably not going to be able to do this one-handed, but I can show you that my wrench goes in there with no problem. So I will get that broken loose, and then I will work on that one, which appears to be a 9/16, and I think I have to put a 3/8 inch socket on it, or maybe a wrench, because I can't get the 1/2 inch with this socket in there. The 9/16 socket did go in there, and it did get enough of the bolt that I was able to break it loose. So I don't think I need to take those other 2 bolts you can see on the side out, because I think they just hold a bumper on. We'll find out shortly as soon as I get all these off. Okay, that piece is out, and that is just a bumper on the corner to support the corner of the bumper. But now what you can see is I have much better access to this bolt here, and there's even one up here that bracket was totally in the way of. So now I'll be able to reach in there. First thing I'm going to do is put some blaster on it to hopefully make those bolts come off easier. This bolt in the top that held that front of that bracket up, it has a retainer on it that I guess keeps it from spinning. So what I'm going to do with the other 2 bolts that go in there is I'm going to put those back in so that I know where they came from. And I don't have another plastic bag labeled and marked, and how do you describe what the heck that's for? So there's one. I'll put the other one in, and then I'll proceed to remove the same bracket on the other side. Passenger side is off, and one thing I didn't point out on the other side, but you might have figured out that I was going to do it anyways, is I'm going to put the nut. I need to shed some light on this. I'm going to put the nut on this stud here so I know where it goes for the front of that as well. And I'm going to do that on the passenger side when I'm done here. Just a good habit to get into when you're going to have something apart for a long time. You know, if I'm taking it apart for a couple hours or even a day, I can remember where it went, because I'm not doing such a big project that I have so many bolts. But when you get into something like this, where you're taking it all the way down to the frame, it's a real big help to know where stuff came from. In case you're watching this video and haven't seen the beginning of the project, I'm taking this 76 Corvette all the way down to the frame, de-rusting it, putting it back together. That's why I say it's a big project. If you've been watching from the beginning, you know that. So those will not be lost. I'll know where they go whenever I get to it to put it back together. So the first of those nuts is off. I took a 3/8 ratchet. I put it on a 1/4 inch drive. The reason I use that small one is because these bolts aren't very sturdy, and you don't want to break them. And that's the reason why I do this by hand rather than using a power tool, because you can feel when you're loosening it that the bolt is starting to get harder to loosen, and that means that rust and debris is getting in the threads, and if you continue to turn it, it'll end up seizing and then the bolt will snap. So whenever you feel it starting to tighten up, you have to turn it back in, clear the threads out, then turn it back out, loosening. And I must have done that 10 times just to get this one bolt off. So that's going to be the process on all the rest of them, and it's going to take a while, but patience is the best way to go about it. So I've got 2 of the nuts off on each side. The bad news on this one is that this housing for the side marker light is so close you can't even get a ratchet on it, so I had to use a wrench and take it about 1/16 of a turn and take it off and reset it. And fortunately, I didn't have to do much backing up. On the other side I did, but what I found was that I could leave the wrench on it and just work it in both directions a couple times, then take it off and move it, and that seemed to work okay. Might not work if yours are really, really badly rusted, but it worked on this one. The upper ones I think are going to be a little bit easier. I'm going to try a deep socket with a screwdriver type driver and see how that works. This is what happens when you put too much pressure on it. The screwdriver thing did not work. I wasn't strong enough to turn it once it got it on there. So I wasn't able to use that. I put a small 1/4-inch ratchet on it, and it was up in the corner way up in here. And I put too much pressure on it and snapped it, so that'll have to be repaired for the bumper to go on right. So I've got 2 off on the top here and the 2 on the sides. So it's a fairly good start, but it's taken a lot of time. The last time I left, I had put some blaster on that are under the bumper cover, and I thought, I don't know if I can get the camera in here, I thought there was only 1 bolt up under the nose, the very front of it. And this morning I went and I reached up there and there are 2, 1 at each finger here. So I think I only put blaster on the 1. There they are. I think I only put blaster on the 1. So I'm going to stick some blaster up there. Some of them came off fairly easy, but the one that's up under this corner is still very hard to get to. And I put more blaster on it because I'm having to unturn it about 1/2 turn, and then I just loosen it 1/2 turn and then tighten it up to get the crud out of the threads, and it's going very slow. I hope I can show this, but after struggling for a long time, I believe I find how they probably put this on in the first place. That bracket that's in the way is over here on the inside of the fender well, the wheel well, and there's a it's almost like tar paper piece here that's just stapled to the fiberglass, and it kind of seals between the two. What I did is I took a long extension, put it on my 1/4-inch ratchet, put it through there, and I was able to get to the bolt, and then that way I could take it and reverse the ratchet pretty easily instead of fighting with all this stuff around it in here. And see if I can turn the light on the video and get a little more light. It looks like the nut is now in the top of that socket. So it was easy once I did that and had a place where I could swing the ratchet. Wish I had known that. I could have saved myself hours on both sides. I probably should have just checked and seen how, well, in retrospect, and maybe not, but I was thinking I should have probably just checked to see how much that mounting bracket would cost and just don't care about it and break them off. But it still would have been hard to get in there and break it off. But going through that little hole there that's just covered with basically tar paper, it came out really easily. And that's one of the things that I do a lot, is I get a long enough extension so that I can get a good swing with the ratchet. It just wasn't obvious in this case how I could get through that fender well, because it's fiberglassed to the fender, so it's not coming off. I started thinking, I wish there was a hole there, and that's when I discovered that, hey, maybe I can get a long extension through there. And it worked and made it a lot easier. Well, I guess the joke's kind of on me, because there's the nut, and like the other side in that same position, it ended up breaking off. I guess I got too good of a swing on it. Even with 1/4 inch ratchet, I had enough strength to break that stud that's bolted onto. So now I either have to find a way to repair both ends of that, or I have to buy a new one. So at long last, I've got all the bolts off, I think. Sorry for the angle of the camera, but I don't have much room between the wall here and the front of the car. I'm going to try to take this bumper cover off now. There you have it. It actually looks like, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it actually looks like there's enough of a stud there that maybe I don't have to repair anything to get a nut on those two end ones. They appear to have broken off with enough exposed thread that, as long as I clean up the thread with a tap and die set, I should be able to get a nut on there and not have to make any kind of a repair to that. But I will take it out and check it. I may be replacing this bumper through a mix-up, so this is a lesson in not trusting anybody that tells you anything. I have a 74, as I probably mentioned before, and it needed a front bumper. It was really all cracked up and falling apart. And someone at a car show had told me that that wasn't a 74 bumper on the front of that car. And they said it was a 75. So I ordered the bumper as a 75, and when I got it, I found out that the bumper on the car really was a 74. So I had gotten such a good deal on it, and since the 75 and 76 are the same, and I had a 76 here that I knew I was going to be taken apart, I was like, well, I'll keep it since it's a fiberglass flex bumper. So I may put that on since it's new. This one's kind of wavy, warped from age, I guess. And that one would be a little straighter. But had I not listened to that guy, I wouldn't have that bumper. Or bumper cover, I should say. I know I've mentioned this several times before, but I like to put the nuts back on where they belong, tight enough so they're not going to fall off. And when I go to put this piece back on, I know where everything is. It helps in the long run. It takes just a couple seconds to thread them on lightly and saves a lot of time searching for where they are. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the actual bumper, and there's a 5/8 bolt on each side, on the corner. I'm going to take these brackets off with it, and then I can just lay it on the bench and take this bolt off to remove this bracket. And if I need to remove this cover from the actual bumper, this is, I guess, your 5 mph bumper, circa 1976. But there are, back under here, 3 bolts, and I was tempted to use my impact wrench on them, but there's so little clearance between here and here, I could only loosen this maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then it would back the impact wrench up to this, and I wouldn't be able to get it off. So I'm going to just use a socket on that if I can break it loose. And then, as I said, these two brackets here I'll take down in the back, do the 2 corner ones, and that should come off. So we're going to find out how tight these guys are. Not too bad. It would be nice if that air wrench was a little bit smaller. Suppose I could get my 3/8 inch ratchet. That would pull these out easily and quicker. One. There's not enough room to ratchet this very much. I am going to get the 3/8 air ratchet. It'll make this a lot quicker, provided that the head will fit in there. If the air ratchet doesn't work, the 3/8 inch ratchet will definitely be an easier tool to use because I don't need the leverage and it'll give me more of a swing. The 3/8 air ratchet with a 3-inch extension gave me the best shot into that bolt. Quite a few threads on that bolt. I'm sure it doesn't need them all. Okay, my battery's getting low, so I'm gonna try to get this last bolt off and change the battery. That one's not broken loose yet. And I have to get a regular ratchet. That's too bulky to get any movement on it. So I thought I had a fresh battery, but I don't. I have about 8 minutes of video here. I'm going to try to get this off and call it quits for a day. So these two bolts should come off pretty easily. Now I'm going to shut off the video, put the light down a bit so I can get to the two that are on the front, and that should come off. I'm going to start with this side, and then I'm going to go to the other side. There's a shim in the back of that. The bolt is still in there. I'm going to the other side second because I don't want to have the bumper fall on my air hose and break it. This is fairly heavy. A big shim in the middle as well. And there we have it, the bumper is off. I'm going to call that a wrap for today, because it's getting about time I wanted to quit anyway. So I will do as I usually do, put these bolts where they belong, so that when I'm putting it back together, I'll know. Same thing with the shims.